In order to raise her daughter poorly, this mother took her daughter to a different luxury hotel every day, and only the biggest and most expensive rooms for 15 years. Any woman who has seen this mother and daughter has been shocked by their beauty, but the mother forbade her daughter to make friends with anyone and force-fed her that everyone else was bad, and she's only allowed to read one book, Bambi. Even when they go to the bookshop to buy a book, they have to be on their guard as if someone is after them. My daughter always asks her who we're hiding from, but Blackie won't tell her. She even said if she did, we'd both die. Soon, this strange pair of mother and daughter attracted the attention of the hotel staff. Not only did they refuse to let anyone in to clean the room, but they kept buying all kinds of furniture. What's even more outrageous is that they brought along only cardboard boxes instead of suitcases. The two waiters talked about finding a way to see what secrets they were hiding in their room. What secrets are hidden in their rooms? So after cleaning the clothes in the suitcases, he offered to help move them into the room, but Sister Black turned him down coldly and firmly. This made everyone's curiosity even more curious, so they decided to wait for their dinner tonight. When they're not in the room, they'll sneak in and take a look. Soon the mother and daughter arrived at the restaurant on the ground floor of the hotel for dinner, but Sister Black suddenly felt that the table was too small for her daughter. She called the waiter and asked why we were being treated differently. The waiter explained that this was the only table left in the restaurant, but Sister Black didn't accept this reason and continued to be aggressive. She flipped her face, flipped over the tablecloth and left with her daughter, causing a lot of gasps. The owner of the restaurant rushed after her and demanded an apology because it affects the other customers. Otherwise, he threatened her to take your weirdo daughter and leave the hotel immediately. Originally, Sister Black was not going to pay any attention, but when she heard her daughter mentioned, she killed her and sent her to hell. When she came to the toilet to clean up the stains on her hands, she bumped into a distant relative. He recognized her immediately. He said she had disappeared for so many years since her mother was murdered. After hearing this, Sister Black not only pretended not to recognize her, but suddenly looked nervous and ran away to take her daughter to the next hotel to check in. At this time, a few waiters finally entered the mother and daughter's room but were shocked by the scene in front of them. Because the room has been transformed into a fairy tale world, apparently the mother and daughter treat the hotel as a home. But why did they stay in a hotel instead of going home? The daughter asked Sister Black this question more than once, but she never told her the real reason. All she knew was that her father was a poor mechanic, her mother was a rich girl, and her grandmother was against their relationship, and her father died before she was born. He was assassinated by his grandmother. It was the girl's birthday. She heard about an aquarium nearby and asked her mother to let her go alone. But Kuro refused immediately because mother and daughter had never been apart. But the daughter had been pleading with her all day, so she couldn't help but say yes. The daughter was surprised and delighted because it was the first time her mother had allowed her to go out. The next day, the girl sent her mother away, but after she left, she had a feeling that something big was going to happen. When the girl returned to her room to get her things to leave, she was surprised to find the hotel's doctor intruding without permission and panicked. He was trying to do something bad to her, but with her clever body, she managed to escape and ran to a nearby forest to hide. When Black came back in the evening, she found her daughter had left without her belongings. She panicked and didn't know where she had gone. She didn't come back until late at night, but she deliberately hid the doctor she just met. Although she appeared calm, her mother, who knew her best, could tell something was wrong. She left the doctor's name tag in the room and deduced that he must have bullied her. In order to take revenge, she sent her daughter to stay in another hotel, and she lured the doctor alone and killed him when he was unprepared. Then she took her daughter and left quickly, but the daughter never knew that her mother had killed anyone, and she didn't know that the police were already onto them. But when they investigated, they were surprised to find the mother and daughter had been using false documents and had no stable residence and had been staying in a hotel. The officers were puzzled as to where their money came from. They immediately accessed the CCTV and prepared to search for traces to make arrests. By now, they had already moved into a new hotel, chasing a dog. The girls went into a cave and overheard a man and a woman chatting. They said the staff of two hotels were killed by a woman in black, and with a craftsman's knife. The girl quickly left in horror, suddenly suspecting that the person was her mother. Immediately went back to her room to look for her mother's things. To her surprise, she found a utility knife, and the next moment she was found by her mother.
Sakın bana Göçük'ten söyle.
The girl is 16 years old and has only read one book, Bambi. Her mother monitors her 24 hours a day to make sure she doesn't read a word more, saying it's the only way to keep her daughter pure and innocent. But the daughter knows nothing and is at the mercy of her mother. In order to protect her daughter, Sister Black's methods are very perverted. She takes her daughter to different luxury hotels every day and tells her that there are bad people everywhere and we're running for our lives. But when the daughter asked her who we were running from, Sister Black wouldn't tell her. She even said that if she did, we'd both die. But if anyone dared to say her daughter was ugly, she would kill him immediately. So this time, the mother and daughter escaped and decided to stay in an unassuming hotel in the suburbs. But she never expected that her daughter would accidentally find her tools and learn about the murder. The daughter blamed herself for her mother's murder to protect herself. Sister Black comforted her and said she didn't have to feel sorry for her. Those men deserved to die in the first place. I'm just trying to rid the society of the evils." At that moment, another tenant who saw her daughter was pretty and wanted to talk to her. She got mad at her. She was about to take out her tools when she realized that the hotel staff were staring at her. She realized she was discovered and ran away with her daughter as if she could read minds. Just 2 minutes ago, the hotel did receive a wanted notice from the police, but a group of people couldn't stop the mother and daughter and let them escape to the airport and pass through the security check. But then the mother suddenly realized there were police in front of her and took her daughter into hiding. The daughter didn't believe it was the police at first, but after overhearing the conversation, she confirmed it and had to admire her mother's ability. Then the two of them boarded the plane without incident. But because they had no money left, they had to stay in a lower-class hotel. At this time, a large number of police officers had just arrived at the airport, but the building was empty. The police chief was very upset and immediately asked his men to check the security cameras. It was not until 2 days later that he found some clues. Immediately called the hotel to confirm whether the mother and daughter stayed there. When they got the confirmation, the police said they'd be right there. Until then, please keep an eye on the mother and daughter. The clerk promised to do so, but then she called Black to tell him that the police were coming to arrest him. Why did she let the murderer go? It turned out that during the day, the little girl gave her a beautiful wreath to wish him good health and beauty. When the shopkeeper saw her, she thought of her own lovely daughter. She couldn't bear to let her get caught by the police, so the mother and daughter immediately jumped out of bed and packed their bags at a speed of 120 per second, ready to run away. When the police arrived, they found the room empty. The sheriff was furious. People don't just disappear, so he decided to search the neighborhood. Soon they found a suspicious taxi in front of them at an intersection and tried to stop it. But when they opened the door, they were dumbfounded because it wasn't a mother and daughter inside. It's so scary that the people actually disappeared. The clerk was questioned about the details, but he didn't say he was the one who tipped them off, and cleverly took the blame off himself. The police could only look up last night's CCTV, but there was no sign of her. Everyone's jaws dropped, but the sheriff suddenly had a wild guess. Could it be that the mother and daughter didn't leave the hotel at all? It turns out that last night, Sister Black was about to take her daughter away, but she suddenly realized that if she escaped now, she would be spotted on the street. The most dangerous place is the safest place. The two of them hid in the corner of the hotel lobby for the night. They watched the police's every move, but they didn't turn on the lights so as not to alert the police, until the police over the early hours of the morning. After they left, the hotel surveillance finally saw the mother and daughter's figure. What's scary is that this black woman is still smiling at the surveillance camera. It's a mockery. The sheriff was furious and vowed to take them down even if he had to die. This mom took her daughter to a luxury hotel every day for 15 years to raise her poorly, but the money ran out fast. With only 1,000 yuan left, she couldn't even afford to eat. And yet, the mother never worked a day in her life until she was in her 40s. She didn't know where to get the money to pay for the luxury. Suddenly, she remembered that her deceased mother had a piece of land that was a tourist mecca, so she immediately contacted an agent to sell the land to get the money. Soon after, the agent asked her to come to the shop to discuss the matter, but Hay never realized that the agent was a mole arranged by her father. It turns out that after her boyfriend was killed by her parents, she had a grudge against them, so she deliberately sabotaged the car and killed her parents. Now she's responsible for many murders. In order not to be arrested by the police, she brought her daughter to the place where she had booked with the agent. After confirming that there were no police, she decided to come down for the appointment. But then her daughter noticed something was wrong. There was a black car parked below. Black took a closer look and recognized it as her father's car. She suddenly realized that her father wasn't dead. It turned out that her father had disappeared after the accident. Everyone thought he was dead. In fact, he had been living in secret and looking for Sister Hay. When she saw this, she took her daughter and ran away, so the police missed her. But that night, she followed the car and found her father's house. She wanted to blackmail him for money, but the father had been waiting for her. He used his walking stick to subdue her. The father told her to call out her granddaughter. You can't raise a child in your state of mind. Now, when both sides are at a standstill, her daughter bursts through the door. Poor grandpa died in her hands. She's better than the blue. The way she did it scared Black to death. Although the man died, they didn't get the money, and now there are more murders. They had to disguise themselves to avoid the police. They stayed in a $20 a night hotel because they were poor. But after a short time, Hay could not stand it. Most importantly, she didn't want her daughter to suffer. So she told her daughter to stay here and she had to go out to make money. After a long time, in the early hours of the morning, her mother suddenly came back to the room. Out of breath, she brought a bag full of jewelry and cash, enough to last both of them for years. Black said it was the first time she'd ever robbed anyone in her life. Just as the two were about to leave, the daughter suddenly discovered that her mother was injured in the waist. It turned out that the man Black had just robbed was desperately trying to protect her belongings. Seeing that the bleeding could not be stopped, the daughter immediately ran to the pharmacy next door to buy gauze and painkillers. Looking at her daughter's understanding, Sister Hay felt it was worth it. But the daughter suddenly stammered and reminded her that she had attracted the attention of the hotel receptionist when she came back just now. When she heard that, we'd been exposed, she could only pack her bags and run away into a deserted alley. By now, he had already called the police and the nearest police officer said he would be there soon. When the mother and daughter fled to the busy street, they were spotted by the police who had just arrived. The two ran like mad, but the mother was in pain and could only push her daughter away and keep running. The police soon caught up with Black and pulled out their weapons. With a few loud bangs, Hay fell to the ground and couldn't get up anymore. Before she died, she gave the police a blank stare. As for her daughter, the police said that after this incident, they searched all the nearby stations, airports and hotels, but they couldn't find any trace of her. She's been missing for years. I have a wild guess about her whereabouts. Could it be a forest or an isolated place? Because the story of Bambi was something the mother and daughter read aloud every day for years, and their fates were just as they had been combed. Mother Dear died first, leaving Bambi to face the future alone.